Hey everybody, it's Al Gonzalez again. If you're interested in some more, I have another one for you from this Unit 3 quiz that I'd love to share. So I've been doing some digging into the data and analyzing it. I even shared just the data, no student names, with my favorite large language model, the AI model, Gemini, because the school is a Google school and we've got Gemini. And I asked it, hey, look at the data. Look at the ones kids got wrong, and I gave it the quiz just like this. Again, no student names, no personal data, no identifying information. Just numbers of the questions, how many got them right, how many got them wrong. And as I noticed, number 4, which has 3 parts, A, B, and C, it was the one that most students in both classes got wrong. So I dug in a little deeper and asked Gemini, well, what else can you tell me about it? Why could kids be getting this wrong? And I even told the kids today, based on what it was saying, that I know they can do the math. I know they can use ratio tables and think proportionally and come up with equivalent ratios. But unit rate is a little bit more complex, right? And so the AI said, well, maybe they're just not understanding the questions. And today's lesson was perfect because it was about reading the question carefully and figuring out what it's giving you and what you need to know. Right before the science map test, I told kids, read the questions carefully. That right there is, I'd say almost half the battle. So step 1 is read the question carefully, figure out what it's asking you and what it's giving you. Second, you have to set up your ratio tables correctly. And third, you have to check your answer and run it by your fact checker. Even when you use a calculator, does the answer make sense? Or did you put in the wrong numbers and the calculator calculated it correctly, but it's way off? So I'm having kids check their answers just like with any technology, whether it's a simple calculator or a hallucinating AI. We have to always check it. So let's start with what we know from number 4. So step 1 is read the question, and it has to do with strawberry milk and the ratio of teaspoons of syrup, 4 ounces of milk. So here's what I showed kids, and here's what we need to do. I'm going to move this down. So I know we're dealing with teaspoons of strawberry and ounces of milk. All right. And I know that the ratio is for every 3 teaspoons of strawberry syrup, you're going to add that to 8 ounces of milk. Now let's take a look at, this is the step number 2. If I read the question correctly, I should have set this up correctly. That is, you're 75% of the way there, all right? Because now I know what the question is giving me, and I set it up so I could be successful when I work it out. Question A is, how many teaspoons of strawberry syrup per ounce of milk does this recipe use? So I need to figure out strawberry syrup per 1 ounce. And some kids got it backward. So that's the first thing, is understand what it's asking me. If it's asking me per ounce, then for ounces, I have to come up with the unit rate of 1 ounce. All right, so if I divided 8 by 8, I have to take the 3 and divide it by 8. Well, without doing any decimal long division, I know that's 3/8 or 3 over 8 is literally the definition of 3 divided by 8. See, we're also learning that fractions are just ratios, and if we can calculate equivalent ratios, we can get equivalent fractions. So I told kids right there, that's your answer. 3/8 teaspoons of strawberry for every ounce of milk. Boom, done. Question B, how many ounces of milk are needed per teaspoons of strawberry syrup? And we went over this in class. So we need to remember that per teaspoon means 1. So now let me do some erasing here. Get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of that. Now I need to go back to per 1. So if I want to get 1 teaspoon of strawberry, I have to divide 3 by 3. And if I do that, then I'm dividing 8 by 3. Well, look, that's the reciprocal or opposite. That's 8/3. And 8/3 is equal to 6/3 plus 2/3. 6 plus 2 is 8. And if we know 6/3 is pretty much 2 groups of 3, or 6 divided by 3, we get, can I move it over? No, put it down here. 2 and 2/3. So 8/3 is equivalent to 2 and 2/3. So the answer for 1 teaspoon of strawberry is 2 and 2/3 ounces of milk. The opposite, which is ounces of milk, per ounce of milk is 3/8 teaspoons of strawberry. Now those weren't as bad. Where the problem started coming in is with part C right here. So I'm going to move this up and figure that one out. Let me erase some of this. Oops, I did it again. And hopefully you're having discussions about this with your kids. And if you see anything that's ratios, like you're going to the store and you're coming up with percent of something, like something's on sale, have them tell you about what we're doing in class, because we're doing percents now. So now there are 18 ounces of milk, and I need to figure out how many teaspoons of strawberry syrup do I need if I want to keep the recipe, meaning I want an equivalent ratio. So here's the next step for kids, is where does that 18 ounces of milk go? Well, it's in what I just said. Here's ounces of milk, so the 18 is going to go in the column for ounces of milk. Now, if I'm trying to figure out how to get from 8 ounces to 18 ounces, let's see what I can do here. I know that, let's see. I know that 8 times 2 is 16, and 16 is going to get me close to that 18. It's only 2 away, right? So then I'm going to do 3 times 2, and that's 6. So here's my new equivalent ratio. 3 to 8 is equivalent to 6 to 16. 8 times 2 is 16. 3 times 2 is 6. But I need 2 more ounces to get to that 18, right? How can I get to 2? Well, what have I got here? Let's see. I've got 1. So I'm going to erase some of this before it gets too hard to see. Give myself enough room here. Okay. So now if I go from 1 to 2, that's times 2, right? So now I have to, oops, how'd that 6 get there? So now I have to do 3/8 times 2. Ooh, that's going to be tricky. So 3/8 times 2 is just 2 of those. So 3 and 3 is 6, so that gives me 6/8. Well, I want to simplify that, and I'm going to use a ratio table right here. Look at me doing another ratio table. I can do, go away. I can do 6 divided by 2 to get 3, and I can also divide 8 by 2 to get 4. So I just use ratio tables to simplify 6/8 to 3/4. Well, here's where some magic happens. And if you're like, what's he doing? Ask your kids about this. If they remember, they can show you, and then it gets really exciting, right? So here's what I call legal adding. Because when we're doing proportional thinking and we're multiplying or dividing proportionally, you got to be careful when you add. Because if they add incorrectly, like 8 plus 1 to 9 is not the same if I do 3 plus 3/8. That's not proportional. But watch this. these, if I do 16 plus 2 to get me 18, then I should be able to add 6 plus 3/4. Well, what's 6 3/4? 6 3/4. Folks, that's your answer right there. So what did we just do? Look at all this we did. And if you need to rewind this and watch it again, do it, because what we just did was this problem right here, which if you cook, this might actually be a real situation. And sure, the ratio table way, it's a lot of work, but it will help you reason it out. Because if you try to use a calculator and you don't know what numbers to put in to get this, ain't nothing going to help you. But if I know that 1 ounce of milk will get me 3/8 teaspoons of strawberry, here's where a calculator can help. So watch this. I know then that I have to do 3 divided by 8, which is 3/8. Okay, that's 0.375. And if I multiply that by 18, because I'm going from 1 ounce to 18 ounces, boom! Hey, isn't 6.75 6 3/4? Yeah, those of us who use coins, we know 3/4 is 75 cents. Boom! So that will get you this correct answer when you're using these ratio tables and thinking proportionally. So again, this is the one that most kids in both classes got wrong. And I think it's mostly because reading the question. So let's do my 3-step method. Figure out what the question is asking. What do you know? Then set up your ratio table correctly. Figure out which unit rate you need and how to get to the equivalent ratio you're trying to figure out. And then check your answer. Does it make sense? If 8 ounces requires 3, I know 18 is going to require more than twice 3. So it's got to be a little more than 3. And hey, 6 3/4 is. And that's my 3-step method to figuring out if you're doing this, or to get it right. All right, this is what I hope they do when we take the test, because we got to learn from our mistakes. All right.